So we're not convinced this storm is.
Rachel, I'll move it. He said there's another storm coming in next Tuesday or Wednesday. I just asked him, I said, just tell me the snow's gone. He's like, Caribbean's looking better and better. Just saying. I know. Well, it's Rachel. She brought it. Every time she's here, something happens. Oh, maybe we're in our class. A little black cloud follows her, I'm telling you. Are you ready to get started or whenever? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So I apologize because we didn't get Kevin's bio, or they didn't give it to me. So I asked Kevin what he wanted me to say about him. He just said, tell him I'm Kevin. So this is Kevin from the National Weather Service. And the only thing I would remind everybody is if you have questions is to make sure you either come to the mic, just because we have people that are streaming this virtually. And if you don't ask the questions with the mic, they can't hear it. So just if we can, make sure you get into a mic so that they can hear as well. So.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out. So we're going to talk about weather. Hopefully everybody's at least a little bit interested in the weather and not too upset after yesterday. Might have gotten a little bit of snow. It was a fascinating event from a meteorological perspective, but that's a whole separate thing. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm, like Kim said, Kevin Smith from the Weather Service. I'm one of the meteorologists who just works operations, does the forecast for Southeast Idaho. And also have a few different focal point areas. Right now, I'm the severe weather program manager for the office, and I'm starting some new stuff up there. And I'm on a few national teams looking at watches, warnings, advisories, and how to make them better. So just a little bit about me there. I'm originally from upstate New York, Syracuse area, right in the middle of the state. That's where I grew up. Lots of lake effect snow up that way. Very exciting. And went to college down at NC State University in Raleigh, got my degree there. Got stranded in private security and firefighting for 5 or 6 years as I tried to break into my career here in the Weather Service. But eventually came out here in 2017, and I've been 6 years now with the Pocatello office doing the weather. And just got back into the fire service, doing part-time with the city of Chubbuck. So I'm still keeping that going on the side. So weather, this is my attempt at trying to come up with somewhat of a creative title. I still don't like it. Yeah, we're talking about the weather. So basically, roadmap for the presentation today. I'll introduce you really briefly to our agency. What is the National Weather Service? What do we do? What type of support do we have for you? The other side of things, lots of different weather hazards and safety we can talk about for hours and hours and hours, and we only have an hour and a half. So I left a few off, but we're going to get into 8 of them. The first 4 are thunderstorm related: lightning, hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. And then the second half will go into flooding, hot and cold temperatures, winter weather, and wildfires. These are all things that obviously do happen here in Southeast Idaho. And I don't want to spend a lot of time just like, okay, there's lightning, you got to go inside, get out of the lightning, or it's snowing, drive safe. I think we all know that. We have to touch on a little bit of that because we're doing weather safety, but for each of these things, I've kind of picked out something to harp on a little bit, or some little niche area of the hazard that maybe we're not thinking about a lot, or maybe we need to think about a little more because we're killing people with it. So hopefully it's a little bit interesting. I've tried to pick 1 or 2 things out for each of these that we'll kind of focus most of our time on. And we'll wrap up with how to connect, how to be weather aware, understanding watches, warnings, advisories, things you can do to connect in to become weather aware related to our office. So first, why weather? Why are we here talking about weather? Money and people. So this map comes out every year. This is 2022. We call this the $1 billion disaster map. Every icon on this map is an individual weather event where there was at least $1 billion or more in damage. So this ignores all the rest of the world where there's weather happening all the time and someone gets hurt, someone dies, a tree blows over on your house. All of the day-to-day normal stuff is not captured here. These are just the big top of the top events. 90% of presidentially declared disasters are weather related. That's like almost all of them. Big deal there. Looking just at 1980 to 2020, the average annual cost just for the stuff on the map every year, just for those $1 billion plus disasters, $46.9 billion in damage and loss per year. Talking big money, obviously, and 365 annual average losses. This is, again, just for what's on the map. We're killing a lot more people. I say we're killing, none of us are killing, but we're losing a lot more people total from weather every year. Beyond. So what do you know about the National Weather Service? Who's never heard of the National Weather Service? Impressive. So everyone else has heard of us. Does anyone want to shout something out that you know about us? Like, who are we? What do we do? Weather. Warnings. Yep. Watches, alerts in general. Yep. Forecasts. I heard helping firefighters. Is that what I heard? Yep. A lot of wildfire support. Yes. Hydrology, world of water. Yes, is another big, huge component. So let's watch the propaganda video here. So feel good vibes now? Everybody loves us? Everything's good? Okay. So really brief overview. We'll go kind of top-down funnel, broadest level to local level here. So we are under the U.S. Department of Commerce, federal government. And it's always struck some of us kind of weird. Why are like weather warnings under the Department of Commerce? Well, we just talked why weather. Huge money, huge losses. So weather has a big impact on trade, international and national trade, commerce, transportation. So kind of makes sense. Many have heard of NOAA. That's their parent agency. It's one of the many pieces under the Department of Commerce. NOAA covers marine fisheries, climate, weather, all sorts of other things. And then there's us down at the bottom here. Ooh, my point. Kind of relatively small agency in the grand scheme of things down under NOAA. This is our actual mission statement. We provide weather, water, climate, data forecasts and warnings, impact-based decision support services for the protection of life and property and enhancement of the national economy. There's that commerce connection back in there. We have sole responsibility for issuing watches, warnings, and advisories for the entire country. So you get them many ways. They come through phone apps, they're disseminated radio, TV, Google has them. There's lots of ways you get that information, but all warnings and advisories originate from National Weather Service offices. So I highlighted this. How many people can say protection of life and property is their mission statement? Firefighters, public safety definitely interfaces there a lot. That's one of the reasons I love firefighting. You get to hands-on help people, right? But outside of certain sectors, this is kind of a big deal. This is why we love our job. I mean, you come to work and say, well, the reason I'm here is I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to protect people and save them from big hazards. So we don't get into like politics and stuff too much during this talk. I know there's a lot of opinions out there about big government, small government, et cetera. A few of the reasons why the government got into weather back in the day that still ring true today. One, just the idea that a forecast should be available for free for everywhere all the time, for people to have access to that and help plan their day. And two, people are staring at the radar so you don't have to. So every inch of the country is constantly under surveillance by someone in an office, making sure we're watching for those hazards that could kill you, and we can get warnings out so that you can go about your day and not have to stay on the radar all the time. So, it's very motivating for us. In the office, we're not Republicans and Democrats. We don't care who the president is. We're weather. So it's a nice little niche within the world of government that we get to kind of hole up in and just focus on our mission, and we're really driven by that. Lots of different pieces to the Weather Service. This is what we call our frontline offices, or our WFOs, weather forecast offices. So every inch of the country is covered by someone. All of these 122 offices are staffed with a minimum of 2 people per shift, 24/7 on each operations floor. So forecast, warnings, support to partners, wildfire support, airport forecast, river forecast, etc., all being done. This is a zoomed in look here in Southeast Idaho. Here at Pocatello, we cover everything up to Chalice and Stanley and west of Burley and Shoshone, so a pretty good chunk of the eastern part of the state. There's other things out there I didn't include, National Hurricane Center, many of us have probably heard of when we get into hurricane forecasting. There's the Space Weather Prediction Center, Climate Prediction Center, River Forecast Center, CWSUs, the 2 airports. There's a lot of things here all outside of this. Continuing down, zooming in on our local level here, this is a picture of our office out next to the Pocatello Airport. Kind of a small office and kind of a small staffing profile in the grand scheme of the world here. We have 5 leads or shift supervisors that work the ops floor. I'm one of the 8 meteorologists staffed. We have managers who can work in ops. They're also fully trained meteorologists. IT people, world of water. Every office has a hydrologist. Water is obviously big. And a couple other positions there. So we cover 19 counties and the Shoshone-Bannock tribes here in Southeast Idaho. So last thing I'll say here on our agency, we've kind of had 2 standout turning points in what we do. So back in the day, we're a bunch of nerdy scientists, and we sit in a dark office somewhere behind the scenes, and we're on computers, and we're like doing stuff, and we put the forecast together, we put warnings together, we throw it out there for you all, and hopefully you're good. Hopefully you understand it, hopefully you receive it, hopefully you can make good decisions on it, but our job is done. That was kind of the model. Not that warnings aren't helpful, we did that. But here's 2011, April 28th, huge multi-state tornado outbreak. If anyone happens to remember back around that time. It wasn't Idaho, obviously. Picture here from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And this was a very, very well forecasted event. Days and days in advance, everybody and their cat was talking about this. TV stations were all talking about it. Aggressive forecasts were being put out saying big tornado outbreak coming. There was great lead time on tornado watches across the states affected in the South. Tornado warnings had an average lead time of, I believe it was 20 minutes. So the national average lead time for a tornado warning is 13 to 14 minutes. So wow, okay, 20 minutes. That's pretty good. Your house is about to get hit. 20 minutes, go do something about it. Go get in your basement, leave, whatever. So we came out of this feeling really great until there were billions and billions and billions of dollars of damage and over 300 fatalities out of this tornado outbreak. And meteorologists are sitting there like, WTF, what happened? But we did our job, right? We had great forecast, great lead time, lots of communication. Why did this happen? People took it personally. We don't want people, we're trying to stop people from dying from the weather, and over 300 people died from the weather. So this was kind of a turning point where we started to realize it's not enough to sit in our office and do our thing and leave everybody to fend for themselves. It's what decisions are people making? What are the societal decisions and the societal safety outcome from that look like? That's the last piece of the puzzle, or one of the last pieces of the puzzle that we need to start caring about more. So out of this was born the Weather Ready Nation Initiative, building a society that is ready, resilient, and responsive to the impacts of extreme weather. So we went from just forecasts and warnings, that's still a big part of it, to expanding it out into 2 more areas here. One, IDSS is impact-based decision support services. So impact-based, talking about impacts with public safety folk so that decisions can be made to protect the public better. This is wildfire support. This is deploying meteorologists to emergency operations centers, incident command posts, things like that, to provide face-to-face weather support for decision makers in the moment. They need to actually have things happen here. And then things like this, outreach, just getting out in the community, doing preparedness and safety. Local example, this is me, or back at me. very flattering shot. But 2019, I was in the incident command bus here at Idaho State University for a football game. So I was doing a weather briefing here for the public safety. One of them was the incident commander. We had the dispatchers for the event right there with me in the bus. Very limited, several hour long, but small scale example of this whole IDSS deployment concept. Really getting out and providing that tailored support so the best decisions can be made. This slide I just added, I haven't really talked about this much before, but this is kind of coming out as another turning point. Hurricane Ian in 2022. So we're talking real recent here. There were a lot of people, here's the track line. There's a lot of people in the path of this storm that were told, you will flood. You will flood bad. You will flood to your roof. You need to leave. There is a mandatory evacuation now. You need to leave. And this is a report by NBC News. We investigated this storm and the fatalities, and we actually ended up with a little bit more, almost 150 fatalities. Over half of these fatalities were drownings. So again, some people in various places, both in and out of the Weather Service, are starting to scratch their heads. We told people they'd flood. We issued the mandatory evacuation for them. Why did they die? Why did they stay in their homes and flood just like we told them they would? And this is where we get into the concept of vulnerable populations, which is kind of a hot phrase right now in a lot of different sectors, and particularly in healthcare, it's been a thing for a long time. But how do you deal with vulnerable populations? What are the things we're not thinking about? So this report by NBC News found some people said, well, my oxygen is in my living room. If I leave my living room, where do I get my oxygen? Now we can sit here and say, oh, you got to take it with you, or you got to get a portable. You know, we can talk all day. This is reality. This is what's actually happening out in the world. A lot of people said, I don't have a car. So you're telling me to evacuate, but how do I evacuate? And for some people, that's the decision's made right there. I'm staying. A huge one with this is the majority of these fatalities were elderly people. I think it was like 60 or 70% were over age 65. And many of them were very concerned about ending up in a nursing home. So a lot of them said, well, I got the message. I knew about the mandatory evacuation, but if I leave the safety and comfort of my living room, someone somewhere is going to stick me in a nursing home and I am not going to get out. They were scared of that eventuality happening. There were a variety of other reasons. There were people who lived in poverty and felt they just couldn't respond. There were a small number of people who didn't get the message to begin with, so that's still a thing. So not all of this is under the umbrella of the Weather Service. A lot of it is under emergency management. It goes into a lot of different sectors, but we have to ask ourselves on the Weather Service side too, where can we do better? Where can we enable the EMs to do better? Can our messages be modified and made better so that we can close that last mile and try to induce the safety actions we're trying to induce with vulnerable populations? So we're going to continue here for sake of time. So just a little bit of overview of our agency, some of the things that are going on there. We're going to dive into these 8 hazards. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides for sake of time. Thunderstorms. The first 4 hazards we're going to talk about are all due to thunderstorms. There's a peak in thunderstorms, as we all know, during the summer months, May, June, July, August. Also during the heating of the afternoon, about noon or 1 o'clock until about 6, 7 o'clock. Peak in thunderstorm activity. This is nationwide, same here in Idaho. We'd normally be asking spotter talk, why is that? I kind of gave it away, heat. So basic ingredients for thunderstorm development, clouds are made out of water. Any questions? So we need moisture. If we don't have enough moisture, we're not building clouds. If we don't have clouds, we're not building thunderstorms. So moisture, instability, ability of air to particularly rise on its own. We need to give it a kick. So we bring in a lifting mechanism like a mountain or a front, kick an air parcel so it gets going. And then how well does it rise on its own? Heating, the biggest parts of that equation. So heating of the summer, heating of the afternoon, allowing warm air to rise, allowing chunks of air or air parcels to go up is huge in the mechanics of a thunderstorm. And there's a bonus, wind shear. I'm running through this because I got stuff I want to focus on later. This is just science. But wind shear, we'll talk about wind shear in a minute, but that's what allows for better storm organization and ventilation. Think of a thunderstorm as kind of like a mechanical thing. Think about it. You've got your engine, just like a car. You've got your gasoline, your warm, moist air that's feeding into the storm, and it's being lifted into the core of the storm in the updraft of the storm. Small column of rising air that's moist and unstable. The storm does its thing, and then it expels cooler, drier air, kind of like an exhaust pipe. That's the downdraft. Every storm that is fully developed and doing good in life should have a really nice updraft and a really nice downdraft that aren't pouring into each other. Your exhaust pipe shouldn't be in your gas intake. It's probably bad. And this is wind shear. Best way to think about wind shear, divide it into two pieces. There's directional shear and speed shear. So all directional shear is changing wind direction with height. So here near the ground, we may have a wind coming out of the southeast and going northwest. As you go up into the mid levels, it may be coming from the south and going north. As you rise further up in the air, it may be coming from the west southwest going northeast, changing wind direction with height. The more changing wind direction you have, the healthier your thunderstorm is going to be. So wind shear is a big deal for organizing storms into big things like supercells, developing large hail, and developing tornadoes. You also look at the speed. So let's say we're 5 miles an hour down here close to the ground, but as you go up in the atmosphere, maybe we're 10 miles an hour, go up a little further, maybe we're 30, 40 miles an hour, and increasing speed with height, going along with the changing wind direction and height, creates wind shear. We'll touch on that again here in a minute. So first hazard of the 8. Again, there's a little bit of science. There's a little bit of like stay out of the lightning. We'll breeze through it here. Lightning does not make a storm severe. You've heard the phrase severe thunderstorm or severe thunderstorm warning. It's not based on lightning. Every thunderstorm by definition produces lightning. So that's on you. Everyone needs to know that and try not to get hit by lightning. We're not issuing a warning for that. All thunderstorms pose a lightning risk. So let's go over lightning hazards.
We live in an electrical world.
We get hit by about 50 to 100 strikes of lightning every second. We're talking about billions of strikes a year.
How does such a huge amount of electrical charge build?
Inside the cloud, we have to have vertical motion. And that vertical motion is bringing water particles and ice particles in contact with each other. And they're shedding electrons. It's much easier for the ice to shed the electrons than it is for water. And so ice will become positively charged, and the water will become negatively charged. And the ice then will be lightened to the top of the cloud and become a positive anvil, and the negative ions in the water and the droplet will kind of be at the base of the cloud, creating a very strong negative charge at the base of the cloud.
The different charges can create different types of lightning.
Oftentimes, the positive bolts are about 10 times more powerful. They last about 10 times longer than the negative strokes. A negative stroke of lightning will have about 30,000 amps, whereas a positive stroke will have about 300,000 amps. You might not be experiencing clouds or even rain at the time where a lightning bolt could come down and make contact with you or the surface near you.
The danger from lightning comes from both the electricity and the intense heat.
The thing is that lightning is super hot. It's anywhere between 15 to 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit when the bolt comes down. Now, keep in mind that the surface of the sun is 10,000 degrees. Really, the interior of the sun is about 27 million degrees, so it's not hotter than the sun itself, but it's hotter than the surface of the sun.
Both elements carry their own dangers.
Now, when we as human beings get hit by lightning, we suffer from both of the impacts. We suffer from the heat, we get burn marks on our bodies, but there are neurological issues that can develop from the electrical capacity coming through your body. So you can do nerve damage, brain damage.
On average, we have 3 deaths and dozens of injuries every year to lightning. Can you be safe?
We say that houses are a safe place to be. Yes, they are. There's places that you want to avoid in a home. For example, you don't want to be in a shower during a lightning storm because the lightning can hit the home, get to the pipes. Water is also a good conductor, so you could end up getting electrocuted while you're in your shower.
There truly is no safe place outdoors during a lightning storm. So if you can't get inside,
a car is a very safe place to be because there's a metal cage around you. It creates what we call a Faraday cage. And so it might be very loud if you get hit by a bolt of lightning in the car. You'll be safe from the heat and the voltage of that lightning bolt.
We do live in an electrical world.
So heat and electricity, dual hazards from lightning. Hopefully this is mostly review. Here's the do's and don'ts of lightning. This is all your basic safety information. I'm not going to read every one, but just go indoors. Don't be under tall trees. Don't be outside. Don't be on anything corded. or that has pipes. If you are inside your home, what's not safe? Corded phone, corded electronic equipment, plumbing, any route that can conduct lightning to get near you is bad. Again, there's no NWS warning issued for lightning. So here's a question. The NWS has stopped recommending the crouch. If you're out in the middle of the field, crouching down low to avoid lightning. Do you know why? We've stopped advertising that. Lose situational awareness. Okay. You're still taller than your surroundings. That's a concern. That's the big one. So what we found is people are relying on this just a little too much. Outside is not safe. We're giving people an out. We're saying, well, if you are outside, if you crouch down, it kind of makes you safer. It makes you like minusculely safer. Make every effort to plan ahead and not be outside during the lightning. If you can get to a car or a building, you should do it. You should not be like, well, I'm just going to crouch down. It's still better than nothing, but it's not something we really want to plant in people's heads anymore as far as bang for the buck and overall safety. Here's what I'm going to harp on for lightning. This is U.S. lightning fatalities for 2008 to 2018. So you can see pretty overall consistent-ish. And we're going with like 25 to 30 fatalities most years in the United States from lightning. There's men versus women. That. We had 21 fatalities in 2018. So let's take a look at those 21 fatalities in 2018. A lot of data here. Again, we're color-coded for gender. We've got dates and locations and states and cities. So the one I want everybody to look at, though, is location. So since the cavemen were around, we're killing people every year at a pretty consistent rate in the same way we've been killing them every year at a pretty consistent rate forever. Outside, standing under a tree near a trailer, out on the produce farm field, under the tree, near the tree in the yard, out in an open area, out on the beach, out on the lake, out under the tree, out on the pond, out on the roof of the house, outside the home again, near the trees, outside the home, near the tree, out a salvage yard, in the park under the tree, at home near the tree, out on the lake, at a construction site. We know this. Stop dying. We know where people are dying from lightning, and we just do it over and over again every year. What if you're backpacking? So, yeah. So outdoor backpacking, camping, hiking, those types of activities. Our general advice is, number one, look at the forecast, obviously. Try to periods with thunderstorms. If you are going to hike, a lot of times morning is better than afternoon because there's a lot of heating during the afternoon. Best chance of thunderstorms during the afternoon. If you are caught out there and you can't get to a car, get to a house, don't be under a tree. You may need to crouch down in an open area and hope for the best. Rewinding from that, though, try not to hike on thunderstorm days. And if you need to, try to hike during the morning. There's a variety of things we can try to do to reduce our risk a little bit. But there isn't any rocket science here. Point being, we're just doing the same thing over and over again. We know exactly why this is happening and how people are dying from lightning. So let's not. There's a lightning safety toolkit thing we're doing out there now. This is the URL. Feel free to take notes, take pictures of slides, whatever, if you're interested. This is mostly for outdoor venues, schools, golf facilities, things that interface with the outdoors. There's a process you can go through to become certified as like lightning safe and review your safety plan, things like that. At the end of each of these 8 hazards, I've developed some questions to ponder. This is mostly geared towards school districts, superintendents and principals, healthcare, emergency managers and administrators, EMs in general, first responders in general. This is the shortest one. There's not a lot here. Do your safety plans include seeking shelter at the first sign of lightning or thunder? Because thunder only happens because of lightning. Lightning is so hot, it causes a rapid expansion, almost like an explosion of the air because it's so hot. Heat likes to expand. And thunder is the sound of that. So if you hear thunder, lightning caused it somewhere, even if you didn't see the lightning strike. So these questions to ponder, try to plant some seeds. Again, this is a readiness rendezvous. We're trying to be ready ahead of time before this stuff happens. If hopefully someone in the audience at some point sees a question and they're like, maybe I need to look at my facility or my agency for that. Hazard number 2, still in the thunderstorm realm, hail. So the science part, got our warm, moist inflow. Raindrops are being sucked in and sucked up into the center of the storm through the updraft. We exceed the freezing level. So now the air is colder than 32 degrees up through the rest of the thunderstorm. The hail gets caught in the updraft and suspended up in the core, and additional rain comes whipping in, and we keep adding water to the outside of the hailstone. It freezes, we add water, it freezes, the hailstones grow bigger. They fall out either when they just happen to, LOL, fall out the side of the storm, they fall out of the updraft, or they get so big that gravity takes over and pulls them down. We get big dumps of hail. The hail got too big. Well, how big can it get before gravity takes over? It depends on the strength of the storm. Stronger the storm, the stronger the updraft. Suspend that hail and let it grow bigger, the bigger the hail. Not much shear. Remember we talked about wind shear. Weak low thunderstorm doesn't last very long. Hail can't get very big. Supercell thunderstorm with a hook echo and possible tornado out on the plains that has tons of wind shear to work with. In addition to the other ingredients, we can obviously create some very large hail. If you didn't know, the criteria for severe hail, for severe thunderstorm warnings, is quarter size. Why is that? You heard insurance. I feel like insurance just like touches everything, but so hurts when you get hit. So threat to humans, obviously. Animals, livestock, okay. Crops. Yeah, we're getting at the heart of the matter here. Research was done and decided that this is the size the original research was done at and decided that penny size hail is severe criteria back in the day up till 2000 and something, I don't remember now, 2008. And it was based on damage to shingles and damage to crops. Some more research was done and we found that maybe we're overwarning a little bit and quarter size is a better threshold, particularly for damage to people's houses and damage to people themselves. So that was raised to quarter size. If you've got wind-driven hail, even pea-size hail is going to damage crops. It doesn't have to be severe criteria to still cause some crop damage that's avoidable. Lots and lots and lots of heavy pea-size hail can still damage crops. We had that up in Ashton a year or two ago. We had a lot of crop damage from fairly small hail. But quarter size is where we start seeing damage and threat to people. You can punch holes in plastic and thin sheet metal roofs, damage siding, damage plastic fences, trim on your car. These are all labeled local photos here the past few years of hail. So, as we all know, don't be out in the hail. Might want to stay away from windows too. Wind-driven hail can cause some issues with broken windows, so that's still a thing. When you're driving, you may need to pull over. Please don't clog bridges. We see people trying to park their cars under highway bridges because they're out of the hail. And then they cause car crashes because other people come flying in and hit them, or multiple people park under the bridge. So please try not to do that. Just stay in your car, wait it out. Here's your questions to ponder for hail. Do you or other key players, because if you're a school district principal, if you're an EM for a hospital, if you're the fire chief, not always you. You're not there for every event and every incident. So do you and your other key players have multiple ways to receive severe thunderstorm warnings? That's something we're going to talk about at the end. Do your safety plans specify where employees, patients, and or children outdoors will take shelter if hail is approaching? That could be at your facility or school. That could be if you're off somewhere you're not familiar with. Before everybody gets there, before things begin, where will you take shelter until it comes in? Has everyone been told? Does everyone know where the shelter is? And do drivers for your organization or facility know what to do when encountering hail on the road? Has anyone ever been driving and you look up ahead and the road is white? There's a hail swath across the road. I've seen them over and over here in Southeast Idaho. Usually it's small hail, like pea-size hail. They're incredibly slippery. So my advice here is if you see that, if you have time, you need to slow down as much as humanly possible and safe before you hit the hail. If you start braking at a decent rate of speed on the hail, you're going to skid and slide all over the place and probably go off the road. Very slippery, even at tiny little small hailstone size. So something to keep in mind ahead of time. I go out tornado chasing in the plains, not condoned by the Weather Service, by the way. And this is a big deal when you're out there coming up on a hail swath, slamming on the brakes and looking sure no one's behind you, and trying to reduce your speed before you hit the hill on the road. Third hazard. We all know thunderstorms sometimes produce damaging winds. So here's your standard safety. Don't be out in the high winds. Go inside, stay away from windows. I got a video I got to add to this of a garbage can blowing in and hitting somebody who was in a stadium. But you do sometimes see some flying debris issues there. There's two things I'm going to harp on here. Number one, which produces more dangerous winds, tornado or severe thunderstorm? I heard tornado. I heard severe thunderstorm. I think I heard both. What's really the difference between these two photos? I see a road and a whole line of power poles snapped off from a tornado. And I see a road and a whole line of power poles snapped off from straight line winds. So keep this image in mind. Straight line winds, microbursts, macrobursts, all of the wind that comes out of a thunderstorm can be just as dangerous and destructive as a tornado. People seem to take tornado warnings very seriously. People seem to not take severe thunderstorm warnings very seriously. And that's problematic. They can be just as bad as an EF0, EF1 tornado. So keep this image in mind. The other thing I'm going to harp on, well, no, we're going to hold that for tornadoes. So questions to ponder here for damaging winds. Again, you're going to notice kind of a theme here. Do you and your other key players have multiple ways to receive warnings? Do you take them seriously as tornado warnings? Do your safety plans and procedures take them as seriously as tornado warnings? Doesn't mean you have to take the same action. Just because severe thunderstorm is coming doesn't mean you all have to go to like the really questionable basement where there's mold or something. But should we be inside? Should we be away from windows? What's the plan? What's going to happen upon receiving a severe thunderstorm warning? Do you have employees, patients, or children in vulnerable locations near windows? And do your safety plans specify when and where to move them to? Particularly if it's like a really bad severe thunderstorm. If you look at the text of the warning and you're like, wait, does that say 80-mile-an-hour winds? That's unusual. That sounds really something to think about. Again, I'm just planting seeds here because I can't go outside my lane. I'm just doing the weather side. But again, trying to tie in with readiness and preparedness.
This just in, a monster tornado is tearing through Dayton, Ohio.
That's where Mom and Dad are.
Looks like the twister is headed right for the Dayton Arms Hotel.
They might not be dead. They could be in the basement. I'm an orphan.
I'm a legal guardian.
Any questions on tornadoes? That's everything you need to know. Okay, so tornadoes. There's one key factor that makes a funnel cloud, and not just a scary, low-hanging cloud. One word. Vortex and shear, we're getting close. Rotation. There's lots of lookalikes out there. Usually we call them SCUD. And in the Weather Service, we like acronyms, so we call it Scattered Cumulus Under Deck, or SLC, Scary Looking Clouds. If you're driving along, this might look a little concerning, but it's not really connected up here at the cloud base. And if you stare at it for a while, it's not really like rapidly rotating. In this case, it's nothing. It's just a low-hanging, scary-looking cloud. Not always easy to tell the difference, but rotation is key if it's a bona fide funnel cloud. They usually have a little bit of definition to them too, as far as their appearance. As Idaho Falls, Aberdeen, and Holbrook here the past few years. Little bit of definition to each funnel cloud. They're connected up at the top to the cloud base, and they should be treated seriously because a lot of times they become tornadoes. On that note, there's also one key factor that makes a tornado and not just a funnel cloud. What is it? Touchdown. Is this a tornado? I heard no. I heard maybe. I heard yes. I heard dust. Remember, a tornado is a spinning column of air. Can you see air? clear, right? It's not really visible. The only reason we see the column of rapidly spinning air is because we've added a tracer to it. Up here, we've got water vapor sucking down some moisture and some water vapor from the actual cloud that's illuminating visually that little column of spinning air for us. Down here at the bottom, we're doing the same thing. We're sucking up dirt and dust when the pointer stops. We're sucking up dirt and dust debris from the ground that is becoming a visual tracer of that tornado. This is a tornado on the ground that can do damage. You don't always see the middle part unless a tracer has fully illuminated that cylinder. It's a video I took on one of my storm chases, Dodge City, Kansas, 2016. Is this a tornado? Good. I'm hearing lots of yeses. You can see the spinning dirt and dust at the ground, even though you can't see the entire funnel. But as we go on, look how quickly the funnel fills in. It actually comes down when we make ground contact. It's already on the ground. We see the spinning dust. So there's no reason for that except that. If it's way off over here somewhere, way off over there, and it's not co-located with something that looks like a funnel cloud, maybe it's just blowing dust. We see that a lot with thunderstorms, although then you should be thinking, okay, there's wind, something's blowing that dust. But when you have something spinning around at the ground visually that is co-located with something that looks like a funnel cloud or a tornado up above, think tornado. There's no other reason for that to be happening at the ground. We do get tornadoes in Idaho. This map on the left here is average annual number of tornadoes every year. We get about 5 a year here in Southeast Idaho. We've had one, I believe, every year since I've been here, 2017. Over on the right, oh, my pointer's back. These are mapping all of the tornadoes over, I think it's a similar time frame to this 1985 to 2014. So these are all individual tornadoes that have happened here in Southeast Idaho over that period of time. So we add, again, average of 5 more dots to the map every year. Definitely Snake Plain, Eastern Magic Valley, Snake Plain corridor is kind of the hotbed. There's a lot of tornadoes, though, that are on the edge of terrain. There's a few even in the mountain areas. Pictures of tornadoes. Keep in mind where you are and what your vision is like. That looks like a funnel cloud, but we're blocked. We've got lots of trees and houses. We're a little ways away, so we may not be getting a full view. Question.
So the reporting for an active tornado, that is it coming off of any meteorological self-report? Like, how are you verifying?
So the question was.
Is it happening?
Yeah. So the question was when a tornado was verified. When a tornado was verified, how did it get verified? Who reported it? So when we issue tornado warnings, either someone's already called us and said it's on the ground, or the radar says it's on the ground. And we don't get into that in this particular talk. We do in the spotter talk. But we look at a radar and have an idea of whether we think the tornado is down or not, looking at rotation on the radar. So it's either a confirmed tornado or it's a radar indicated tornado. In either case, it's getting a tornado warning because we think there is a tornado. If you're trying to call in a tornado, that one I'd stare at for a minute because I'm blocked. I'm a little ways away. I don't have a good idea if there's anything going on at the ground there. But all real examples here, Southeast Idaho the last few years. True or false, a highway overpass is a safe place to take shelter from a tornado. This is one of 2 things I'm going to harp on. Ooh, we're smart. Who's heard that? Most people, right? Yeah. So that used to be a standard safety precaution for tornadoes. If you're in your car and it's getting really close, find a highway overpass, take shelter under there. It's also in the movie. Is it in Twister? Okay, it is in Twister. I was thinking of another movie, but what we found is highway overpasses act as a wind tunnel and actually strengthen the winds under the bridge. So let's say a tornado with 100-mile-an-hour winds hits the bridge. Those may go 150. Funneling underneath that bridge, and there may be flying debris in there as well. So that is just absolutely not safe. You're better off being out in an open area than you are in the bridge. So don't do that. That has changed. It's actually listed here, one of the worst options underneath the highway overpass. The other thing I want to harp on here for planning, look at the bad options. Large open rooms like gymnasiums. It's right there with manufactured homes that you should not be in during a tornado. So if your safety plans for your organization or facility involve collecting people in like a big open auditorium or gymnasium, that is not the place to be. And the way to think about that is you want lots of solid structure around you. So in a bathroom, you've got the walls, you've got the plumbing in the walls. It's a smaller enclosed room. If you're in a hallway, particularly at a school, a lot of times it's cinder block and it's kind of closed in around you better. Harder to knock that over. If you're in a big open room like a gymnasium, as soon as you get some wind penetrating in here through a window or through a door, you start moving a little bit. Or as soon as you try to rip that roof off, you're going to cause structural collapse of sidewalls. So we found through some research that is not the place to be. So don't collect people. Tornado questions to ponder. Do you and other key players have multiple ways to receive tornado warnings? Again, we're seeing most of the worst stuff at the Weather Service. We're watching the radar 24/7 for you. We don't catch everything, but most of the worst of it we do. Do you have a way to get those warnings? Do your safety plans clearly identify where to shelter everyone? Is that location safe? Gymnasium or open room? And I'm a big fan of repetitive hands-on practice for getting good at anything. So practice is key. Do you hold drills at least annually? What to do in these scenarios? So that's the first, that's the first half. That's the first four all directly thunderstorm related. Four more that we'll talk about. And again, try to pull out some particular little features here. Next one's flooding. So what is flooding? Water where it's not supposed to be. Types of flooding, maybe. There we go. Flash flooding, very impactful. Scenes like this. Quickly. Don't die on me. There we go. River flooding. The river is full. You can't fit any more water in the river. The water overflows. The picture I took, remember our big flood year here in Southeast Idaho, 2017, big snow, big flood. This was down on the Bear River. That's actually the river gauge right there. So the edge of the river is supposed to be like right here, down near the Idaho-Wyoming border on the Bear River. Sheet flooding is something I didn't ever hear that term until I came here to Idaho. That's not something that was ever discussed back in New York, where I'm from, or back in North Carolina, where I went to college. Usually, you got lots of snow on the ground. It gets warm. It all starts to melt. Can't go anywhere. Ground might still be frozen, so it's not soaking into the ground very well. The river might be full. It's not efficiently draining off into the river, so it just melts and sits there. This is Ovid down near Bear Lake. Big flood year, 2017. Ice jam flooding. Ice breaking up on a river. This is 2003 in Glendive, Montana, a really big one. Ice breaking up on a river starts to flow, comes to an obstruction of some sort, like this railroad bridge or maybe a highway bridge, and everything kind of jams up a little bit and piles on each other. And the water has to overflow because it's partially blocked.
Late. Yeah, blocked by water crossing the road. Doesn't look that deep, so you decide to drive through it. Bad decision. And it may be your last.
You miss those numbers, here they are. So we got a couple things to harp on about flooding. One is we massively underestimate the amount of water that will do things. 6 inches, we're talking half a ruler, ankle deep water that's moving can knock over an adult. 1 foot, 1 ruler, we're talking still below the knee of water can start to float a small car. It does not take as much as we think it does, and we're not good at staring at the water and figuring out how deep it is either. So this is big. How many people? Well, let's do this first. So school bus, we got 1 student left on this bus. He's an elementary school student. We're at the end of the route for the day, taking people home. There is a sign right here indicating flooding. We're going to see it again here in a sec on the right, but we're going to drive by it right there. This is in Leander, Texas, 2019. I'm trying not to block you. So we're driving along. We got to get this last student home. There's been thunderstorms. Lots of rain has been falling. Road's okay. Actually going to drive by a little tree branch here in a minute. Right about there. Yeah, it's been thunderstormy. Going to come around the bend here, and we're going to have some water across the road. And it's a bus, right? That's big. We're going to drive into it. And just like that, we are off the road. So I clipped this video. It only goes on for a little bit here. The water eventually does come all the way over the hood. And we're going to start moving a little faster down the road. Creek. It's actually a creek. Okay, now we're moving along a little bit better. We're going to start hitting some trees. We're going to bounce around a little bit. The bus eventually got lodged against a bunch of trees. Search and rescue came out to take care of the situation. The student was fine. The driver was fired, and then the driver was charged with child endangerment. So let's bring in another piece to this puzzle here. True or false? You can see the road surface or the painted lines through the water. It's reasonably safe to drive through flooding. Okay. So I heard a couple no's. We just got maybe yes, because if you can see the lines, there's not maybe that much water. There's not a lot of debris there. It may not be moving very fast. What are you driving? So what is the size of the vehicle might be a consideration. Okay, so it may not be clear because of dirt and sediment in the flood water. Okay. So the correct answer to this, as you might have guessed, is false. Show of hands, who's driven through flooding? Thank you. No lying. I've driven through flooding. Everybody makes that, you make a decision case by case basis, right? Particularly here in Idaho, we don't have a lot of other routes to get somewhere quickly. We've all done it, but we're taking a risk every time we do it. We always say turn around, don't drown in the Weather Service. Let's look at a local example. I really love this example because it's not outlandish or out there. It's something that really happened that is still kind of illustrative. This is Google Street View before the flooding started. The battery is about to die. That's interesting. I think it's this guy.
Oh, it is.
This isn't my laptop, by the way. Okay. Kim is going to save us from not dying. Yep, it just went on. Okay, good. Thank you. That would have been really sad. So this is a great example. Before the flooding began, up in 2017, big flood year, we keep using that as an example. This is the Google Street View of Hegel Park up in Healy. So I got a little park there, little playground road that goes through, and then the Bigwood flooded. So this is June 6th, while there's flooding going on with the Bigwood River. Same view. Doesn't look terrible, right? It looks kind of shallow. Obviously, it's running that direction. You can see a little rapid action over there. There's a whole neighborhood back there. A lot of people drive this to get home. And after the floodwaters started to recede, it looked like this. So obviously, we don't know how much of that erosion has already happened here. You know, these things are fluid. These things evolve over time. But that may be under the water and we don't see it. So there's two components here. One, we're underestimating how much water can cause problems, and then we drive through it. Number two, even if you can see the painted lines on the road or it doesn't look very deep, what's the condition of the road underneath? Maybe the asphalt is in place. The asphalt's intact and it's got the painted line on it, but water has washed out the roadbed under the asphalt. You've seen those crazy pictures on social media or news sometimes with like the pickup truck that went vertical because there's a hole hiding underneath the floodwaters. I'm going to get one of those and put it in here at some point. But that's what we got to be thinking about. What's the difference between a flood and a flash flood? Did I hear fast, flow fast? Slow versus fast, okay, speed. Okay, so we got floods can slowly develop and slowly rise, whereas flash flood can happen quickly from a downpour. So yeah, easiest way to remember this flash flood can look like a wall of water coming at you. Best way to remember this, flash flood happens in a flash. So flooding in general is any water where it's not supposed to be. And yes, that can happen slowly, as with snowmelt or slow rises on rivers. Flash flooding can happen very, very quickly in a matter of minutes sometimes. We'll watch a couple videos. This is BYU up in Rexburg, 2014. This was thunderstorms producing heavy rain right near Rexburg, and it was all running off. What did we just talk about? Should not be standing. Remember, 6 inches. This is fast moving. 6 inches to lose your balance. So think of fast moving water, rapidly developing water like this. This is, again, I like using real examples here from Idaho. Okay, we're driving along. I don't remember what state this is from. We got a lot of heavy rain coming down. We got a lot of standing water along the road. I'm seeing a lot of red flags here. We've actually got water. We're going to slow down. We're going to drive through it. Actually got some water on the road. You can see the outline of the mountains in the background, so you're in a terrain area. So I'd be here. I'd be like, okay, it's heavily raining. There's a lot of standing water along the ditches. Here's over the road again, in the ditches and on the sides of the road. And I'm in an area with terrain. I should be on high alert for flooding. So we're continuing along, better view of the mountains there now. Again, we're talking flash flooding here. So think fast, rapid. Still doing okay. Road is still okay. A lot of water along the sides, but we're making it. We're going to come around this bend, right in the terrain here, and watch the road. Back up. And it's going to come in from the side. This would be terrifying to be in. A lot of debris in that water. Water's moving right along. It's going to start coming in behind us now. We're still trying to back up and not hit anything. Thank goodness we're going to be able to turn around here in a second. Look at that road. Run away. So, flash flooding, this is what I want you to think about. It happens very quickly. It can have debris in it. It can be moving around very quickly. Things can change very quickly with flash flooding. It's probably the worst kind of flooding as far as imminent danger to you. So, seeds to plant, questions to ponder. Do you and other key players have multiple ways to receive flood warnings and flash flood warnings? Again, connect. We're detecting a lot of this stuff for you. Is your facility in a floodplain? FEMA can cover that for you. A weather service is actually working on a big floodplain mapping project, but it's not out yet. Or have you experienced flooding before? Probably an indication you might want to be prepared for it again. What infrastructure can you raise or move? Other actions you can take to mitigate the impacts. Do you have a lot of electronics in the basement or on the ground floor of a facility that does see seepage? Can that be raised? Can that be moved somewhere? What's the fastest way to get to higher ground if you had to evacuate? And what roads might flood along that route? Obviously, be problematic. Don't drive through it. Turn around, don't drown. And what safety policies, do you have safety policies that prohibit drivers for your organization or facility from driving through flooded roadways? Have you banned that? Bus driver got fired and then charged. Something to think about. A lot of these pop quiz questions. So we're going to move into extreme temperatures now, warm and cold. At an air temperature of -10, which does happen multiple times a year here in Idaho, with a wind blowing at 25, how quickly can frostbite occur on exposed skin? Every 3 minutes. Any other guesses? So it's not actually 3 minutes, it is 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes. That's not long. I mean, go outside, try to get your mail, get distracted, look at the snow, take a measurement to call the weather service with your measurement. But frostbite can happen very, very quickly when you throw a little bit of cold temperature and wind together. So just a quick summary, this is mostly kind of your standard stuff for extreme cold temperatures. If you're outside, dress in multiple layers, cover your exposure, limit your time, don't forget about your pets, stay dry, water is not your friend. Stuff for inside though. Make sure pets are dry and hydrated. There's actually a thing, dehydration of pets at cold temperatures. Apparently that's a thing. I didn't know that till about a year ago. Never use a stove or oven for heat. We're getting into fire hazards. This one's big. Never operate a generator inside. We found in tropical storm and hurricane scenarios, in some of them, not all of them, but in some of them, most of the deaths are secondary deaths due to carbon monoxide poisoning. We may have only killed 5 people. We may have only killed 5 people during the storm, but we killed 15 people through carbon monoxide poisoning in the 5-day period after the storm because the power's out and their generator wasn't properly ventilated. That can apply to ice storms. That can apply to any situation where you have a generator going. Turn off space heaters if you're leaving a room or going to bed. Again, fire hazard, saves energy. Close doors to unneeded rooms so you have a smaller space to heat, protect your pipes, trickle your water. Open cabinet doors to allow air to circulate around the plumbing. Good tip. Check on family, friends, and neighbors who may not have adequate heating. Again, I'm kind of starting to think about vulnerable populations. You have a family member who lives in the middle of nowhere in an old, small house with poor heating. Do they have someone to check on them? Things like that. We'll harp on this one for cold. So huge hazard in the springtime here around southeast Idaho. Remember, the rivers are full of snow melt coming out of the mountains. It's very cold. Even if the temperature is 60 degrees, like we are forecasting coming up Sunday, Monday, 50s, possibly 60 here in Pocatello, by the way, but it may not last. Another storm. So think about the cold water. Think about children playing near cold water, particularly in the springtime. Know the warning signs of hypothermia. We can all watch out for each other. Look for these things, cold-related, heat-related illnesses. Extreme temperatures, I'm not going to dive too deep into this. Know the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. They're reviewed here. Your vulnerable populations for heat. Pregnant, newborns, children, elderly, those with chronic illnesses are going to be much more susceptible to problems from extreme heat. Here's your general safety. Don't leave people out in closed car. Use air conditioning. That's your friend. Drink plenty of water. Don't get dehydrated. Wear loose-fitting clothing. Take breaks. I'm going to harp on this for heat. Children in vehicles. So watch this animation. Temperature outside is 80 degrees. Outside 80, inside 80, 99 in 10 minutes, 109 in 20 minutes, 114 in 30 minutes. We heat up very, very, very fast when the sun is out on our vehicles. Even if the temperatures are just kind of moderate, 70, 80 degree day. It doesn't have to be a 90 degree day to do this. Look at all the children we're killing. Pediatric vehicular heat stroke deaths going back to 1998. Not a huge trend up or down. We've already killed one baby this year, by the way, in a hot car. Let's look at statistics. Children who have died due to pediatric vehicular heat stroke since 1998, almost 1,000 nationwide. Nationwide, not Idaho. Percentage of deaths due to the child being forgotten by their caregiver in the car, more than half of them. I always hear that. People ask, how can you do that? But this is reality. This is what's actually happening. Age range of those deaths, 5 days old to 14 years old. 54% involved a child under 2 years old. This is all noheatstroke.org data. So let's not do this. Yeah, so the suggestion was leave something important in the back of your car so that you have to grab it before you go inside and you won't forget. Yeah, you would think the kid would be important enough. But again, it's easy for us to sit here and have these conversations, but this is what's actually happening out there. It's a big thing. So want to plant that, let's not leave the baby in the back seat, please. Another thing I'll mention here, we've all heard probably of heat index. We're talking about how hot and humid is it and how bad is that for me? Are we on like a high heat index day? The Weather Service just a few years ago released a brand new thing called heat risk. The URL is up here on the screen. And when I took the screen capture, we weren't hot, so it's all green, but it's color-coded scale, and we've partnered with the CDC for this. So it's not just what is your temperature and what is your humidity. It's temperature and humidity, but it's also how many days in a row are we super hot for the cumulative effect of heat stress on the body. It's also how many nights in a row are we not getting adequate cooling. So if your house heated to 87 degrees during the day and the temperature at night is only 66, and you're not getting to 66, we never quite get there. It's always a little warmer inside. Are we getting relief at night? And if we're not getting relief at night for multiple days in a row, that's actually going to pump up your heat risk. It's really looking at impacts on the human body. So it's a great tool out there that you can look at for the next 7 days and zoom right in to whatever area you're interested in. So questions to ponder for extreme temperatures, hot and cold. Do you have ways to get your warnings? Do wind chill warnings and excessive heat warnings actually trigger any special procedures in your plans? So when I was a manager in private security, stranded from my weather career for a while, on wind chill warning days, I would get with all of my site supervisors for security and say, I don't care if your procedure says your officer needs to be out at the booth in the parking lot. I want them inside like hourly at least. Like we need to make sure that we're not giving people frostbite or heat exhaustion here. And that was triggered by, in our procedure, a wind chill warning. Do you have employees, patients, or children who recreate or perform work near water during the winter or spring? How would you respond to them falling into the super cold water? Do additional safety measures need to be added to your plans? Remember, even if you're not dying from cold shock or anything in the first few minutes, you begin to lose motor control within minutes as far as your muscles seizing up and not working well for self-rescue. Do you have employees, patients, or children to be working or recreating outside during the excessive heat? Do they have enough water? Do you have temporary shade? Do you need to get some temporary shade for your event? Should you be outside at all? If you are, do you know signs of heat-related illness so you can watch out for each other? Does everyone at your organization facility know what to do if they observe a baby, a child, or a pet locked in a vehicle, even on a moderately warm day? If you see this, this is an emergency. You do not walk away. You do not leave this for someone else. If the child is still conscious and happy, maybe you've got 30 seconds to go try to find, or a minute to go try to find who has the key. If the baby looks like they're suffering, they're experiencing symptoms, they're unconscious, we may need to break a window. Call 911, give them a few minutes, but if they're not there quick, you may need to break a window. This is an urgent, life-threatening emergency you do not walk away from. You can put that right in your training plans for employees, your facility, your organization, your school. Last two. So winter weather, the science piece here, just a quick review of precipitation type. Snow, it's cold all the way to the ground. Sleet, you start as snow higher up here near the clouds in the atmosphere. You've got this little warm layer above 32 degrees. You're melting your snow into rain, but then you got lots of cold air below that. You're refreezing the raindrops into little ice freezing rain, much thicker layer of warm air, possibly all the way down to not too far above the treetops. It's going to be very shallow, cold air at the surface. There isn't enough space or time for those raindrops to refreeze. So they hit your car, they hit the ground, they hit your trees, they hit your house and freeze immediately because the actual air temperature at the ground is cold, below 32. And rain, the snowflakes melt, it's warm, that all the way down. Obviously, the biggest thing you can do to drive safe in the snow is slow down, reduce your speed. Number one, clean off your vehicle, don't use cruise control, leave extra space, leave early so you're not feeling that anxiety of needing to get to your event. No, I need to get there a little faster is all very good. I think I'm going to touch on here. Go back. True or false? The National Weather Service considers a snow squall just as serious and dangerous as a severe thunderstorm or tornado. Heard some trues. Just like kind of uncomfortable with what snow squall means. It's kind of a new thing. A few people, yeah. This wasn't really popularized or pushed really out there in the public eye until just a few years ago, and it came out of Pennsylvania. We've had some spectacularly bad pileups, 20, 30, 40, 50 vehicle pileups in snow squalls on interstates in Pennsylvania. That's where a lot of this came from. So in the Weather Service, we actually go into what we call severe weather operations when we have a snow squall day. We bring in extra staffing. We have management stay over. And we're just like a severe thunderstorm or tornado day. So what is a snow squall? This is how serious this is. I believe this video is from Pennsylvania. So a blizzard is a wide area where you're visibility is below a certain point. There's a wind component. I'd have to look up the definition. That goes on for hours. Blizzard is a multiple hours to even a day or more type event covering a large area. Squalls are more convective. They're more like thunderstorm features. They come very quickly and they're over less than an hour. It's almost like a thunderstorm, but in the winter. So squall warnings, let's tune into those. Slow down, turn on your headlights. This is how serious it is. If you can't get off the highway and you're driving into a snow squall, or there's a warning out ahead of you, we actually recommend pull over to the side of the road, get out of your vehicle and get away from the highway if you can and not die from like bring a coat. We've actually had people get out of their car, jump the fence, those chain link fences along the interstates, get into the woods to avoid pileups. But let's not get here. Don't drive into the snow squall. Try to exit the highway if you can. Try to be getting the warning so you're not getting into a bad area. I would have to go back and look at the data if we met criteria or not. Yeah, I would have to look into that, whether it actually met criteria for a snow squall. Usually for snow squalls, like I said, we're looking at what we call convective elements. They're like shower and thunderstorm type elements on radar that are moving. Versus yesterday's event was really fascinating, again, from a meteorological perspective, but it was more upslope enhancement against the terrain that just never stopped and dumped and dumped and dumped because we're lifting air and it's becoming more moist. But so snow squalls, I would keep that video in your head when you hear snow squall warning or hear snow squall. That's what we're talking about. Also, touch real quick. We're killing people due to cardiac arrest shoveling snow. This is kind of a big thing too. Move only small amounts of snow. Try to push, don't lift. Take frequent breaks. Break down the workload. Back injuries, heart attacks are a big thing with shoveling snow. There's a lot of stress on the heart. So questions to ponder for winter weather. Do you and other key players have multiple ways to get the snow squall warnings? Do you allow your drivers to continue driving during snow squall conditions, or have they been told what to do? Are you thinking about physical exertion when you ask folks to shovel snow? Maybe you need to send 2 people, divide up the workload. Maybe you need to check on them after 10 minutes. Stay safe. How much snow can the roof of your facility hold without collapsing? I was just up in Sun Valley the other day doing a Skywarn spotter talk, and they've got 4 or 5 feet of snow on the roof of almost every building up there with the crazy winter they've had. I'm looking around like, ooh, probably some of that should be shoveled. But do you know at what point you need to shovel your roof? Because if it collapses, obviously that's bad. People may get wet, people may get hurt, your operations may be shut down for days, if not weeks. I mean, there's a lot that's going to happen there. This was a picture from our big flood year up in Ketchum when I was doing a snow survey. Collapsed roof on, I believe this was a barn. It was a very nice looking barn. We had a couple instances of this that year. Actually, we've had it this year down toward Bear Lake and Franklin County. I've seen 3, 4 examples, some big barns. I've seen roof collapses and one residential garage, like well-built home garage, and lava. I haven't heard if that's snow. They were speculating it was. Maybe people have heard. I know we were holding off because they were investigating what the actual cause was. But another big one, are you thinking proactively when it comes to, number one, allowing telework when you can? Not everyone can do that. Releasing students or employees early or holding late? We see this with winter weather. We see it in tornado areas. We're sending the students home before the tornado outbreak starts. This is a picture this year, March 10th, the ITV webcam near Hayburn with a school bus with a snow squall behind it. If we're going to release students or employees early, are we being proactive enough that they can get out and get home before they get hit by something? Or are we too late and we're going to let people out and we're going to get hit in 10 minutes? And we just need to keep them at school. Things to think about. Wildfires. Hold up. Suggestions on that. The biggest thing I can say is try to tune into the forecast. Make sure you're getting good information ahead of time. A lot of you in this room, we'll get to this in the last piece. A lot of you in this room qualify as core partners, which means we can sign you up for things like special partner email briefings, things like that provide a little bit of extra heads up. But it's really about ahead of time tuning in as best you can to the weather and trying to make a decision earlier than later on what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Would be my advice. Last one is wildfires. Air quality impacts. So obviously the best course of action here is to not have fires to begin with. So all your standards, don't toss cigarettes, keep hot vehicles off of dry grass, watch chains dragging on the asphalt, open flame, anything that can create sparks, burn bans. 91% of wildfires were caused in 2020. This number fluctuates every year, and also by state and area, how you break down the data. Point being, it's humans and lightning, and sometimes a lot of humans. So building defensible space is also a big deal, particularly for homeowners. This is a complicated graphic, but basically you have zones going out 30 feet, 70 feet, 100 feet from your home where there's different actions you should be taking to try to mitigate fuels. Do you have a lot of dry, dead fuels, or are you keeping your grass nice and short? Are you cutting limbs off the lower 6, 7 feet of the trees so that grass fires can't easily spread up the trees with ladder fuels? Are your trees spread out so that the fire can't jump from tree to tree as quickly? lots of different things you can think about here. There's lots of information online, firewise.org, but a lot of other websites are out there to help you with this. Something you can think about too for hospital facilities, schools, your business, your office. Is this the next? Okay, we got one more. True or false? It's possible for a wind-driven wildfire to spread faster than you can run. Yeah. This is a thing. It's been documented. Wind-driven fires can fly. So we're going to watch 2 video clips. These are a little, some of you might find these a little intense. I want you to think about, what if this happened here? How are you prepared for it? What would you do in this particular instance? One is going to be the body cam footage from a law enforcement officer, and then we're going to look, second video is from the customer perspective in the same scenario.
Go east, yeah, towards Denver. Okay. Go towards Denver. Evacuate now. East, go. Evacuate.
Evacuating from the back of the building.
Okay. Everybody head east. Go towards 36. Move now. Leave your stuff. Go. The fire's at the back. Go. Everybody head east. Get out of the store now. When you get on the road, go eastbound. Everybody evacuate the store now.
We're evacuating.
Get out of the store, head eastbound, leave your stuff, go now. Evacuate Costco now. Head eastbound, leave your carts, go. Everybody evacuate, get out of the store now. Go eastbound. Head towards Denver. Head towards Denver. Let's evacuate now. Leave whatever you're doing. Go. Fire out back. Fire out back.
Customer perspective.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Get on the road. Go eastbound.
Here's the officer.
Yeah.
This is what they saw going outside.
Come on, come on, come on.
It's the Marshall Fire 2021 out in Colorado. Heavily populated area. Lots and lots of homes burned. We have a lot of homes and facilities here in Southeast Idaho that are on what we call the urban wildland interface. This could happen here. We've had a couple that have kind of happened here. If you think back, is it the Charlotte fire I'm thinking of in Pocatello? Burned like 80 homes. So that's intense video to watch. It gets my heart going a little bit, but something to think about. If this were to happen here, if your facility or your school is close to the timber or it's close to the grassland, all the sage and juniper, and something like this were to blow in. Do you and other key players have multiple ways to receive red flag warnings and emergency evacuation orders? Again, tune in. Have you created that defensible space around your facility? Do you have a wildfire evacuation plan that you can activate quickly, execute quickly, drill on it so that you're not stumbling in the heat of the moment? Does your plan include mitigation actions you can quickly take as you leave, such as turning on your sprinkler system? There's a fire nearby and you're quickly evacuating. Can you throw a switch somewhere and turn the water on? Might save your facility. And talking about air quality, do you have employees, patients, or children that need to evacuate or wear respirators? Do you have those respirators in stock? Do you know how to use them correctly? So last piece here. What is the worst, most urgent type of weather alert? Watch, warning, or advisory? Your warning. Your advisory. So this is a national problem because this gets confused by people everywhere all the time. And there's a whole team in the Weather Service working with social scientists right now to try to figure out how to improve this. This is a brand new slide that I made for the talk before this, that this is the first time I've explained it this way. I'm going to review it here. If you want these alerts, you You want to know what they mean. You want to know what the difference is between, for example, a watch and a warning. You got to review it sometimes. You got to go to Google, find a .gov site that can review the information really quickly for you. But so timeline, here's the weather event at hour 0. And this is walking backwards in time, 12 hours out, 24, 36, 48, 72 hours out before the weather event. We have 2 options. Well, we have 3 options. One is do nothing. Sometimes it's winter in Idaho and it snows. We don't always need a warning for that. But we need a warning or an alert of some type. We have 2 options. We have a warning. That's the answer to the question. That's the worst, most urgent type of alert. Doesn't matter if it's for tornadoes, floods, winter, doesn't matter what the element is. When you see the word warning, you need to think threat to life and property, take action. It means the same thing every single time. Weird exception with red flag warnings. They're kind of their own thing. They almost act as watches. That's mostly for the wildland community. So warning means threat to your life and property. Everyone needs to do something. That something maybe go inside. That something maybe don't travel. That something maybe go to the basement for a tornado, whatever. Uh-oh. There's something you need to do. We have another option, a lower level alert called an advisory. An advisory is mostly a pay attention, things are happening type of product, but the weather, whatever the advisory is for, might be hazardous or inconvenient for certain people in certain areas if you don't take precautions. So wind advisory, if you're driving an empty tractor trailer, you might want to check on crosswinds. Your empty tractor trailer might be susceptible to blowing over, even though at the advisory level, we're not knocking down trees and power lines. That's the warning level. That's the threat to everybody else. So warning, really bad. Advisory, kind of medium. Some hazard. They're all generally for our longer fuse products, 36 hours out, 12 hours out. Sometimes the event's already happening and someone calls us and we're like, oh crap. And we put it out in the heat of the moment. Caveat here, we do have what we call short fuse products. So obviously tornado warnings, I said the average lead time is 13 to 14 minutes, not 24, 36 hours out. Same conceptual picture though, just different timeline across the bottom. This is our higher confidence, higher certainty regime. The hazard is imminent or it's already occurring. Confidence is high, it's happening. We have a bonus product. So if we're sitting out here, I call it a bonus, it's not really a bonus product, but 72 hours out, 60 hours out, we're in the forecast office, we're looking at things, we're like, there's something coming down the pipeline here. And I think we might get to this warning level. It's not looking, it's looking warning. It's looking like it's going to be bad enough to be a warning. If we have 50% confidence or higher that we're going to hit warning criteria, we can issue a watch with much greater lead time to start putting that heads up out there. That's a pay attention product. Prepare for this. This is a lower confidence, lower certainty regime. Conditions are starting to look favorable for the hazard, but it's not imminent or occurring yet. And a warning and an advisory are considered upgrades to a watch because now we have high confidence, high certainty it's coming. So there's the conceptual picture. This was 8 slides before, now it's 1. Try to explain it a little simpler, but people are probably still going to confuse it. Just refresh yourself if this isn't part of your terminology on a week-to-week basis. But all these terms mean something. Again, warning means threat to life and property regardless of what the hazard is. Love this graphic. Brad Panovich, this is near where I went to college, chief meteorologist out of Charlotte, North Carolina, WCNC. Cupcake watch. Again, we're looking at watch versus warning now. Conditions are becoming favorable for cupcakes. Okay, this is a great way to explain it. You come home from work, your husband or your wife has vanilla extract and flour and sugar and butter and eggs on the table. The cupcake isn't there. You can't eat it. It's not ready. There's nothing you can do, but there might be cupcakes later. Conditions are favorable. And then cupcake warning, the cupcake is actually here. It's ready to eat, it's ready to grab. It's not just favorable anymore, it's happening. And to eat. And I'll throw out here too, this is an example using severe thunderstorm warning versus severe thunderstorm watch. That watch with the longer lead time targets usually a wider area. If you can see the pink shading a little bit there on the map. Again, it's the entire area where conditions are favorable for the hazard versus the warning. We try to drill down to a much smaller area where it's occurring. Last couple slides. Things you should do to become weather aware and connect and tune in and get this information. or just take a picture of the slide at the end if you don't want to write it all down. We don't have an app. That's a whole can of worms. I'm getting into that today. But we do have this thing called interactive NWS or INWS. It's not interactive at all. I don't know why they call it that. You can go to this website and sign up if you're a core partner. So we're talking first responders, emergency managers, school principals and superintendents, dispatchers, hospital and healthcare EMs and administrators. Sign up for this and get text message and email alerts for watches, warnings, advisories. You can pick what area you want them for, customize that, and you can pick what you want. You only want certain types of warnings. Number 2, subscribe to our partner emails. Email us at pocatello.weather@noaa.gov. Say, hey, I want to be on the list. Most of you will probably meet that core partner definition, so we can get you on these. These aren't really for the public. We send those out once or twice a month ahead of some of the bigger weather events. If you don't watch our YouTube briefings in the morning, we post these by 5 a.m. every morning on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to NWS Pocatello, or you can get them off our website, which I'll throw up here in a minute. And you can hear, that's a Kevin example. Good morning, I'm meteorologist Kevin Smith at the National Weather Service in Pocatello with your Southeast Idaho weather hazard briefing. We do about a 5 to 10 minute briefing every morning. I am not allowed to recommend a radar app for you as a government employee, but go do some research and get a good radar app. The one that I have on my phone is RadarScope, since you asked. There's a few free ones out there. There's a few that you have to pay a little money. I think I paid about $10 for the base level of mine. But even if you're not connected to a lot of other things, if you can pull up the radar and see a blob coming towards you, you're better off than not, right? See that there's some sort of rain and snow coming. Number 5, utilize our website, weather.gov/Pocatello. Number 6, this is the only non-weather service tool. We try to cover weather-related highway closures pretty heavily on our social media as they happen, but we're not perfect. Where do we get that information? Well, the base source is ITD, Idaho Transportation Department. So 511.idaho.gov or the Idaho 511 app is the core base source for road conditions, road closures. You can even look at webcams, what highway signs are activated, things like that. So last chance for a picture. Everyone should do these things. Get connected so you can be weather aware. I could probably make other suggestions too, but these are some of the main ones. Have multiple ways to get warnings. We don't have tornado sirens here, obviously, but there's a variety of different suggestions here. Don't put all your eggs in one basket if something fails. Have at least 2, maybe 3 ways to get warnings. A lot of people think that weather radios are kind of an outdated technology. They are not. They're like a smoke detector for weather alerts. If you have one in your home, you can set it on a shelf, get it all programmed in standby mode, sits there quietly until there's a warning, and then it activates. It sounds an audible alarm to get your attention. Then it reads the warning to you, and then it shuts off again on its own. Pretty handy. And it'll wake you up at night. There's even attachments for these to vibrate your bed or do flashing lights. They're trying to do some things for deaf, hard of hearing, blind, etc. So no, this is picking up broadcasts that originate from the National Weather Service. And again, all of those warnings that will trigger a weather radio come from the Weather Service. You can also hit this weather button. This is just one of many brands. Hit this weather button and listen to the forecast. It's got a recording of the forecast on it too, even if there's no warnings going on. So still a great device to have. You get them for like $30. A lot of big box stores will have them. Electronic stores will have them. You can get them online. We are staffed 24/7. There's a lot of phone numbers for us out there. Some of you may already have one. That's fine. They're all valid. If you don't have a number for us yet, put this in your phone, 208-233-0834. That's one of the numbers. It's a publicly available number, but it does go directly to our operations floor 24/7. If you ever need to call us and get some support for an event, get an update on hazardous weather that might affect your facility, trying to make school decisions, weather closure, early release, whatever you're trying to do, we can support you. And then pocatello.weather@noaa.gov will reach whoever's working at the moment. It doesn't matter, you're not trying to connect with me and I might be off that day. This will ring through to our ops floor with an audible alert that we have a new email and we can support you via email. Connect with us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. There's our briefings on YouTube. That's most of what we post there every day. And that's what I want to share with you. What do we do on time? Ooh, we're just a couple minutes over. I rehearsed this and I went 15 over, so this is pretty good. So if we got I'm here. If there's a question, we can do a quick question or two now. You can come talk to me after if you want. Thank you for listening. Hopefully everybody takes a nugget or two away from this that helps you out. So thank you. How big of a flood are we going to have? So in a nutshell, it's going to warm up this weekend, early next week.